The first thing you should know is this. I didn't scream. I didn't shout. I didn't even blink. Because when I saw him half naked, gliding through the water of my pool, I realized something terrifying. It wasn't just that my wife had betrayed me. It was that she had made my home into their playground. And there he was, muscles flexing in the sunlight, dripping arrogance with every stroke, while my wife sat nearby, legs crossed, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not at me, never at me. At him. My heart didn't race. No, it slowed. My breath became sharp, controlled. Because in that moment, I knew this wouldn't end with yelling, or slamming doors, or tears. This would end with silence, and with consequences so deep, they would never forget. You see, betrayal doesn't just shatter love, it shatters identity. And when the one person you trusted the most spits on that trust, you have two choices: collapse or sharpen. I chose to sharpen. But before I tell you how I turned their secret paradise into a living hell, let me ask you something. What would you do if you found a stranger in your pool, sleeping with your wife, laughing in your face without even knowing it? Because this is not just a story about cheating. This is about power, about dignity, about reclaiming what was stolen from me with surgical precision. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, have you ever seen betrayal up close? How did you react? Because once you hear how I reacted, you'll never look at a swimming pool the same way again. From the outside, we were the couple people pointed at with admiration. The house, with the white fence, 2 cars in the driveway, smiles at dinner parties. Neighbors whispered things like, "They've got it all figured out." Friends told us we were the couple others should model themselves after. And for a long time, I believed it. I believed the laughter at dinners meant happiness. I believed her polite kiss on the cheek meant affection. I believed that the life we built together was steady, unshakable. But comfort is a liar. It dulls your senses, numbs you to the cracks forming right in front of you. At first, it was small. The way she stopped reaching for my hand during movies. The way her smile looked like it belonged to a stranger, rehearsed and distant. I'd come home from work and ask about her day, and she'd respond with short, clipped answers, as if I was interrupting something important. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe I'd been too consumed by work, too distracted. So I doubled down. Flowers on random Tuesdays, weekend getaways, expensive dinners. I even took time off just to be more present. But every gesture fell flat. She accepted them like a person accepts a gift. They didn't ask for polite smile, empty thank you, eyes already elsewhere. And then came the silences. Silences at the dinner table. Silences in the bedroom. Silences so loud they rang in my ears. I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering when my wife had stopped being my wife. But the real shift wasn't in her words, it was in her presence. There were nights I came home and the air itself felt different, almost charged. The faint smell of wine lingering, though I never touched it. A second towel damp in the bathroom when I'd been at the office all day. Subtle, small details like cracks in a mirror, easy to ignore until they spread too far. I wanted to confront her. God, I did. But confrontation without proof is weakness. And I refused to be weak. Not yet. So I waited. I watched. I started noticing patterns. The calls she silenced quickly. The late morning errands that never had receipts. The sudden glow on her face after afternoons with a friend. The facade was crumbling. The perfect marriage wasn't perfect at all. It was a house built on glass, and the first stone had already been thrown. And the worst part? Deep down, I knew. I knew there was someone else. I just didn't know that soon I'd catch him, splashing in my pool like he owned it. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I left work early that day, a rare chance to surprise my wife. I parked my car down the street, careful not to make noise when I closed the door. Something in my gut told me to move quietly, like a hunter stalking prey. The air was heavy with summer heat, the kind that makes every sound sharper, every detail impossible to miss. As I walked around the side of the house, I smelled it before I saw it. Chlorine. Strong. Undeniable. The scent clung to the breeze like a warning, and then I froze. There he was, a man I had never seen before, broad-shouldered, skin bronzed by the sun, cutting through the water of my pool as if it belonged to him. Each stroke was arrogant, smooth, deliberate, like he wasn't just swimming, he was claiming territory. And her, my wife, sitting nearby, legs crossed, sipping from a glass of wine I hadn't bought, watching him with the kind of expression that used to be reserved for me. Her lips curled into a smile so genuine, so radiant, it felt like a slap to the face. She laughed at something he said, her body leaning toward him as if pulled by gravity. Do you know what betrayal looks like when you see it for the first time? It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet and surgical. It cuts you open in slow motion, and you can feel every inch of the blade. I didn't rush out. I didn't scream. I stood there, hidden, heart steady, eyes locked, and in that stillness, something inside me snapped, not in rage, but in clarity. This was no accident. This wasn't a mistake or a drunken one-night lapse. This was routine, comfortable, practiced, and the way he moved in the water told me everything. He had done this before, many times. I counted, I watched. They thought they were clever, safe in the daylight, but I was already building a map in my head. His body in the pool, her smile on the chair, the empty wine bottle on the table. Evidence, proof, a crime scene unfolding in real time. In that moment, I made a vow to myself. I would not confront her, not yet. Shouting would give them power. Tears would give them excuses. No, this would require patience, precision. I stepped back, careful not to make a sound. As I walked away, I could still hear the splash of his body in my water. That sound would haunt me and fuel me. Because from that day forward, the stranger in my backyard wasn't just a trespasser. He was a dead man, swimming. After that day, nothing about my marriage looked the same. Every glance, every smile, every excuse, it all felt poisoned. But instead of confronting her, I became something else. I became her shadow. People think rage is loud, but real rage, the kind that grows deep in your bones, it's quiet. It waits. It sharpens. So I started watching, listening, documenting. I noticed their rhythm almost immediately. Wednesdays and Fridays late mornings when I was supposed to be at work, that was their time. He'd arrive when the sun was high, always around 11. A quick kiss at the gate, her nervous glance over her shoulder, and then straight to the pool like he owned it. I tracked everything. Photos from my phone through the blinds, videos of him slipping into the water, of her handing him a towel, screenshots of her sudden grocery purchases, wine, fruit, little luxuries we never used to buy midweek. Every receipt was another piece of evidence, another nail in the coffin of her excuses. The more I watched, the clearer the pattern became. They weren't reckless lovers stealing moments. They were comfortable, settled, like this had been going on for months, maybe longer. Do you know what that does to a man's mind? To see your home, your sanctuary, turned into a stage for your humiliation? It eats at you. But instead of letting it break me, I let it harden me. I built a file, a thick one. Dates, times, images. Proof no lawyer could argue against. No tear-filled apology could erase. At night, while she slept beside me, I organized it. Page after page of betrayal, right there, under our roof. She thought I was clueless. She thought her lies were clever. But liars always assume the world is blind. They forget some of us can see everything. And with every page I added, I felt less like a husband and more like an executioner waiting for the right moment. Because revenge doesn't come from rage, it comes from control, and I was in complete control. One night, while she pretended to sleep, I stared at her hand resting near mine. Once, I would have reached for it without hesitation. Now, all I saw was a stranger's touch lingering on her skin. I didn't move. I didn't speak. But inside, a storm was brewing. A storm she couldn't see, but one that was building quietly, patiently, waiting to strike. And when it struck, It would be devastating. Once I had the proof, I could have walked away. I could have marched into a lawyer's office, dropped that thick folder on the desk, and ended it all clean. But clean endings don't satisfy a soul that's been humiliated. No, I didn't just want freedom. I wanted justice. And justice, in my case, meant making him suffer in the same place he felt most invincible, my pool. People underestimate swimming pools. They see them as luxury, relaxation, a place to cool off in the Sunday. But I learned they're fragile ecosystems, delicate balances of chlorine, stabilizers, and pH. Push that balance far enough in the wrong direction, and the water itself becomes an enemy. So I started researching. Late at night, when my wife thought I was dozing beside her, I was on forums, chemistry sites, technical manuals. I learned how small adjustments could irritate the skin, how invisible vapors could make lungs burn, how subtle imbalances could feel like drowning even when you were above water. And the beauty of it? It all looked natural. No trace, no poison bottle, no smoking gun. Just an accident in the pool. I made lists, ordered supplies online under fake names, had packages delivered to a rented P.O. box. Everything precise, discreet, invisible. While others slept, I was mapping out the perfect downfall. I even rehearsed it in my mind. The day, the time, the excuse I'd use to leave the house, the way he'd strip off his shirt with that smug grin, the moment he'd dive headfirst into water that no longer welcomed him. I could hear it already. The splash, the cough, the panic in his voice. And her, the way she'd rush to him, screaming, desperate, realizing too late that the man she betrayed me for was crumbling right before her eyes. Some men fantasize about winning back affection. Others beg, plead, forgive. I wasn't one of them. My fantasies were darker, sharper, carved with precision. Because betrayal doesn't deserve forgiveness. It deserves exposure. And exposure leaves scars. By the time my plan was complete, I no longer felt like a husband or even a victim. I felt like something else entirely. A judge preparing a sentence. And the sentence I had in mind wasn't just about him. It was about her, too. She thought she could play house with another man in my home. Soon, she'd learn that when you play with fire in someone else's house, you burn. The night before it happened, I barely slept. Not because of nerves, because of anticipation. My mind replayed every step of the plan, like a conductor rehearsing a symphony. Every note, every beat had to fall into place. At 11:47 p.m., when the neighborhood was still, I slipped out the back door. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint hum of the pool pump. To anyone else, it was background noise. To me, it was opportunity. I carried a plain container, unmarked, nothing that would raise suspicion if anyone happened to see. My hands were steady, not a tremor in sight. This wasn't the shaky rage of a man out of control. This was the calm precision of a man in command. Kneeling by the pump, I unscrewed the panel. The faint smell of chlorine stung my nose. Perfect. I poured the mixture into the system, watching it disappear into the veins of the machine like poison slipping into a bloodstream. It was colorless, odorless, invisible, just water, or so it would seem. But by morning, that pool would no longer be the oasis he thought it was. It would be a trap. A mirror waiting to shatter the arrogance of the man who swam in my world as though he owned it. I closed the panel, tightened the screws, and stood still for a moment. The water rippled in the moonlight, quiet, calm, hiding its secret. It looked innocent. Deadly things often do. Inside, my wife slept soundly, unaware that her stage had been rewired. She thought she was living a secret romance. In truth, she was sleeping inches away from her own reckoning. By dawn, I moved as though it was any other Friday. I dressed for work, packed my bag, even kissed her on the forehead before leaving. She smiled absently, already distracted by her plans for the day. She thought I was out of the way, but I didn't go to the office. I parked miles away, waiting, timing, breathing through the clock. At noon, like clockwork, I returned, slipping silently behind the curtains in the living room. My heart didn't pound, my pulse didn't race. Because this was no longer a question of if, It was only a matter of when. The stage was set, the audience was in place, and the show was about to begin. The house was silent, except for the faint splash of water outside. I stood hidden behind the curtain, my eyes fixed on the shimmering surface of the pool. The air smelled faintly of sunscreen and chlorine, ordinary, harmless scents. But I knew better. I knew that pool was no longer an oasis, it was a loaded weapon. Then I heard the gate. His voice, loud, smug, careless, drifted through the backyard. "Morning, beautiful," he said. I could almost hear her laugh, soft and nervous, the same laugh that used to belong to me. She kissed him quickly, a kiss that sliced deeper than any blade. And then, as if the world itself were mocking me, he peeled off his shirt, flexing like a peacock, and walked straight to the pool. I held my breath. His body arced through the air, cutting into the water with a clean splash. For a moment, everything was still. Then, it began. The thrashing, the coughing, the scream. It was a sound I'll never forget. Raw, guttural, filled with panic. He clawed at the water as if it had turned into acid, his muscles jerking uncontrollably, his skin blotching red. His breaths came ragged, desperate, every inhale a stab of fire in his chest. "Mark!" she screamed, rushing to the pool's edge, her voice cracked with fear. "What's happening?" He tried to answer, but only choking gasps came out. His bravado, his arrogance, it was gone. In its place was a man broken, terrified, stripped of the illusion of strength. I stepped out from behind the curtain, slowly, deliberately. The look on her face when she saw me, God, I'll never forget it. The color drained, her lips parted, but no words came. She knew. She didn't need to ask. The truth was written in my silence. "Get him out," I said, my voice calm, steady, commanding. "Before he drowns." Her hands trembled as she dragged him to the edge, wrapping him in a towel. He whimpered, shivering, his eyes red, his body covered in angry welts. The pool had taken his strength, his dignity, and left him a shell. And I just stood there, watching, not yelling, not raging, just letting the silence press down on both of them, heavy and suffocating. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, searching for mercy that didn't exist. And in that moment, I realized this was only the beginning. She sat on the patio, trembling, clutching the shivering mess of a man she once called her secret escape. His body was broken, his pride annihilated, but her fear was just beginning. I walked closer, slow and deliberate, each step echoing like a countdown. She couldn't look me in the eye. Her hands kept fidgeting, pulling the towel tighter around him, as though shielding him could undo what had already been done. Finally, I spoke. "I know everything." 3 words, that's all it took. Her head snapped up, eyes wide, lips parting to form excuses that never came, because she saw what lay in my hands. The folder, thick, heavy, bulging with pages. I dropped it onto the table with a thud that made her flinch. Photos spilled out, timestamps, receipts, videos burned onto discs. Every detail of her betrayal laid bare. Her fingers trembled as she reached for them, flipping pages faster and faster, desperation spreading across her face. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It's not what it looks like." I almost laughed. Not what it looks like? She was staring at pictures of herself, smiling, laughing, wrapped in his arms while I stood in the shadows, capturing it all. "You had 11 years, I said quietly. My voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. Calm can cut sharper than rage. 11 years of my trust, my loyalty, my love, and this is what you did with them." Her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head, but there was no conviction in it. The mask was gone, ripped away. What stood in front of me wasn't the woman I married, it was a stranger. Behind her, he groaned, clutching his burning skin, coughing weakly, pathetic. The man she threw it all away for was now gasping like a fish dragged from water. "You think I'm going to scream? Break things? Beg you to explain?" I leaned forward, lowering my voice until it was a whisper sharp enough to pierce bone. "No, I don't need noise. I already have the truth, and the truth is enough." She covered her mouth, sobbing, but the tears didn't move me. They weren't the tears of regret. They were the tears of someone who had finally been cornered with no escape. For the first time, I felt power. Not the frantic, desperate power of anger. No, this was colder, cleaner, the kind of power that comes when justice is inevitable. And as I stood there, watching her crumble under the weight of her own choices, I realized something. This wasn't the end of her punishment. It was only the beginning. By evening, he was gone, driven away like the coward he was, clutching his skin as if he could hold himself together. My wife, no. The woman who used to be my wife stood in the kitchen, silent, her eyes red from hours of crying. But tears don't erase betrayal. Tears don't rebuild 11 years of trust. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Calmly, precisely. I handed him the folder, thick with evidence. Photos, videos, receipts, enough to erase any doubt. He flipped through each page, his smile growing wider, sharper. "This," he said, "is ironclad. She won't stand a chance." And she didn't. When the papers hit the table, she didn't fight. She couldn't. Every argument she could have made had already been destroyed by her own actions, her own face staring back at her in photographs she thought no one would ever see. My lawyer's words cut her down in court, each fact another nail in the coffin of her marriage. The divorce was swift, clean, ruthless. She left the courtroom with barely a fraction of what she expected. No house, no car, no comfort of the life she built on lies, just silence and shame. But the fallout didn't stop there. Whispers spread quickly in our circle of friends. People she thought were loyal suddenly kept their distance. Invitations stopped coming. The phone stopped ringing. At dinners, her name became a cautionary tale, spoken with raised eyebrows and shaking heads. Her lover? He vanished. Whatever pride he once had melted away with the scars the pool left behind. His body healed slowly, but his confidence, his swagger, that was gone for good. He became a ghost, hiding in the shadows, too humiliated to show his face where people remembered the story. Meanwhile, I walked away lighter, free, my reputation intact, even strengthened. I was the wronged husband who handled betrayal with composure, with proof, with undeniable justice. People admired the way I carried myself. They didn't see rage, they saw control. And that control terrified her, because she finally realized I hadn't just taken away her comfort. I had dismantled her world, piece by piece, until there was nothing left for her to cling to. Justice wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was quiet, cold, surgical. And it left her standing alone in the ruins of her own choices. I walk past the pool sometimes. It's quiet now. The water's still, reflecting only the sky above. No more laughter I wasn't part of. No more shadows lurking where they didn't belong. Just silence. My silence, my peace. Do I regret it? Not for a second. Because betrayal is like rot. If you don't cut it out completely, it spreads, poisoning everything it touches. I cut deep. I cut clean. And what I removed was not just her. It was the weight of years spent blind to the truth. I remember the splash, the scream, the look on her face when she realized it was over. Those moments aren't scars for me. They're closure. Proof that justice, when delivered with patience and precision, doesn't just punish the guilty. It frees the betrayed. Some people say revenge consumes you. Maybe they're right. But in my case, it saved me. It reminded me of who I am. It gave me back the dignity she tried to steal. And now, when I look at my reflection in that pool, I don't see weakness. I don't see the man who doubted himself while she laughed behind his back. I see strength. I see survival. I see a man unbroken. And maybe that's the real lesson here sometimes. The only way to heal is to let go of the illusion and face the truth, no matter how ugly. Because truth, in its rawest form, is liberation. So, let her live with the ruins she built. Let him carry the scars he earned. Their punishment isn't mine to deliver anymore. It's already done. As for me, I've moved on. Lighter, sharper, untouchable. And that pool? It's no longer a reminder of betrayal. It's a mirror of victory. What about you? Have you ever seen a betrayal so severe that the revenge felt perfectly justified? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story gripped you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one.